Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Classic X-Men number 22, cover dated June 1988, and the focus of this review and commentary is on the backup story entitled Solace, and it is a solo story focusing in on Storm. And you can see this back cover illustration by John Bolton, pencils and inks by him, featuring Storm wearing not her usual X-Men costume, but rather a shirt of chainmail. And of course there are these two warrior women beside her, and they appear to be in the middle of a ship, and Storm is summoning a wind there. So there's intrigue in respect of what could this image portend in terms of the interior story, and also what kind of a fantasy vibe do you get from this. Little touch of Flash Gordon going on here with these women in medieval style costume, but with these blasters, kind of more modern technology. So that blend of the modern and the medieval, characteristic of a fantasy series. And as I said, I get a Flash Gordon vibe from this. So let's look at the front cover to this issue, which reprints Uncanny X-Men 116. So the front cover is by Arthur Adams. It's got a date on it there, the 12th of January 1988. That's Garrock, the petrified man there, with the X-Men fighting him in the Savage Land. Let's open this one up to the inside credits page, and you can see there's another spot illustration by Arthur Adams of Garrock and also Zaladane there. And the credits for the backup story, the writer is Chris Claremont. The art, of course, by John Bolton, pencils and inks by him. The letters by Tom Orzechowski, and the colors by Glynis Oliver. Now you can see there that there's also a pin-up by Frank Miller, so we'll take a look at that. Here's the splash page from issue 116 of Uncanny X-Men by John Byrne, obviously homaging splash pages by Will Eisner, who would work in titles to stories in his splash pages. Let's continue here. The key moment that connects to the backup story is Storm's inability to save Garrock from falling into the pit of the volcano. And it's because of her childhood fear, her claustrophobia, her fear of dying alone, buried in the dark. So that regret and guilt that Storm feels in failing to save Garrock will come into play in the backup story. And you can see what happened is after that event, the X-Men spent a fortnight in the Savage Land before the Great River thawed, and they were able to get out to the open ocean. Now here's the pin-up by Frank Miller. So using some duo shade there as well, very designy as one would expect from Frank Miller. Version of Wolverine in the brown and orange costume. That's pretty cool. And there was a couple of pages of letters in the middle of this, and I think this is the first letters page in Classic X-Men, if I'm not wrong. And then we have the backup story that is my focus in this review video. So there's 11 pages of story and art in this backup story. And the starting scene is the village of the Fall People in the heart of the fabled Savage Land, and it's dawn. And you can see that in Glynis Oliver's colors as well. You've got the pink of the dawn there on the side of these mud huts, and there is an alert. X-Men, exclaims Banshee, Kazar, Cyclops, all of you come at once. So they sprint into action. Really love the shot of Zabu there. I think that John Bolton does a great Zabu. And in Storm's hut, she's left a note. She's gone. And what is the story according to Banshee? According to this note, she felt the need for some time off by herself. She promises to be back before we leave. And Kazar says, if she's able, trust me, X-Men, the Savage Land can be a treacherously deadly place, especially for a woman alone. And Wolverine Riley says, she ain't no woman, bub. She's Storm. She'll be fine. But Kazar interjects, I'm lord of this land, Wolverine. I know what I'm talking about. You don't know her, says Wolverine. And Cyclops, of course, who's the leader. What will he conclude? Wolverine continues, she's an adult Kazar, ready and able to take responsibility for her actions. Why not take her at her word and leave her in peace? Cyclops concurs, makes sense. So these two are often at loggerheads. They agree on this. And Cyclops concludes, I only hope none of us will live to regret it. So much for the X-Men in the Village of the Fall People. The rest of the story focuses solely on Storm and what she does for the 2 weeks. So the title of the story is Solace, and it's the solace that Storm receives subsequent to her failure to save Garrock because of her childhood trauma, her claustrophobia, her fear of dying in the dark. And here we go with the third person narrative captions. I always love Claremont's command of prose. He has a real sensitivity to the cadence of the English language, and his third person prose narrative captions are often almost poetic in their construction. So here we go. Not so long ago, she lived in a sylvan East African valley that was paradise on earth, and she was acclaimed by those who knew her as a goddess. In truth, she was a mutant whose parahuman abilities gave her dominion over the weather, and that truth led her to join the Uncanny X-Men, that band of unsung quasi-outlaw heroes. But this new life hasn't been easy. More and more she finds herself coming into conflict with her most fundamental beliefs. Thus far it's been a case of resistible force meeting immovable object, but slowly with glacial inexorability she feels that relationship begin to change and is terrified. So which of her most fundamental beliefs is the one in question here? Now you can see from this splash page that John Bolton has managed to put on paper an extremely fine ink line there, and he's inking with a brush, so that's very difficult to do, even though the original drawing is larger than the printed page. But also you can see here one of the drawbacks of the cheaper printing process that Marvel and DC Comics turned to in the mid to late 80s, the flexographic printing process, and that is that as those plastic plates would heat up, colors could start to blur, and also details of the blackline artwork could be lost in the reproduced page on paper. And that didn't happen with the metal plates that were used in the 60s and 70s by Marvel and DC, where the blackline art would hold up with precision and clarity, but it could be lost with the flexographic printing process, and it's getting lost on that splash page. So this is definitely a piece of art by Bolton. I'd love to see the original of this. Let's continue. So Storm is diving into a black lake of water, and she's thinking to herself, she's wrapped up in her thoughts. If I'd tried harder, might I have saved Garrock? I shall never know. I believe myself consecrated to life. I've sworn never to kill. So this is the fundamental principle that she feels is being shaken because of the conflict with her duties as an X-Man. Yet, as an X-Man, I am certain to face moments when I must. And she was about to think kill or take a life, but she's distracted because we got to have a complication in the plot. Something in the water, blessed bright lady, she exclaims. Really like the bubbles there that Bolton has come up with for Storm diving into the water. And then we see this massive maw of this crocodilian saurian, and also two figures in connection with the beast, one impaled on the beast's teeth and another one there caught or wrapped up in the rope of a harpoon stuck in the side of the beast's face. So who are these, and what are these suits that they're wearing as well? So yeah, Storm is caught by the massive crocodile, the dinosaur crocodile. Glancing blow, she thinks. So her thoughts are fragmentary. Merciful mother, that hurts. And the mother is a theme that will resonate through this issue, or not this issue, but rather this story. Managed to twist aside, she thinks. Its skin, rough as stone. Scrape my side, bleeding like a stuck pig. Nothing broken, thank heaven. Creature returning. So the creature's turning around. There's the woman still hanging on off the harpoon to finish me off. I do not die so easily as that monster. Someone on its back. A woman trapped by her harpoon line. Still alive, but I shall not be much longer without a breath of air. So then the crocodile starts to dive down deeper. Blast, the saurian dives deeper, she thinks. If I release my hold and break for the surface, he will have another chance at me. And even assuming I survive, this captive woman most surely will not. Like the details of the kelp or seaweed here at the bottom of this lake in the Savage Land. Let's continue. She's motioning for me to save myself, thinks Storm underwater. We go together, my friend, or not at all. So here is Storm, once again upholding her principle of reverencing all life and doing her best to save any living being from harm or death, and being a hero, of course. So she cuts the harpoon line, and then a big question mark in her thoughts. I've lost my bearings. We were diving downwards. I sensed no change of direction. Yet there is the surface above us. The line is cut. The woman is free. So this is weird, but we'll find out what happened shortly. Open sky, she sees. Must act at once, deal with the creature while he is in my element. And then into the narrative captions. And with that desperate thought comes lightning to strike down the great saurian. But the bolt is too powerful. Storm is caught in its backlash. And as the dinosaur falls, so does she, but on the shore of the lake. And then we get this psychedelic dream sequence while she's unconscious. But oblivion doesn't bring peace. Far from it. To her surprise, Storm finds herself a child again, in her mother's arms. Yet in that instant, even as Storm's heart leaps with joy, the beauty of both women and moment is swept away by fire. So that's a really interesting transition there. As Storm's mother, she's not named here, but her name is Endare. So that's N''D''A''R''E. And that's significant because that glottal stop. It's interesting what's coming up next after this particular page. I'll talk about it then. Totally consumed as if they'd never been. This is a fantastic transition as the skeleton of Endare transforms into a dinosaur with giant jaws that is chasing after Storm, leaving in their place the ashes of old, cold grief and the misery of a childhood that never was, because she lost her mother in the bomb attack in Cairo. Both parents slain, no home save alleyways, no friends worth the name, no one to trust, none to cherish and comfort her, forced to live by her wits, always on the edge, a huntress, ever conscious of those who hunted her. That was her time in Cairo. And now it seems in this nightmare dreamscape have caught her. Her powers desert her, just as her parents did. She cannot fight, nor fly, or run. Yet as those terrible slavering jaws close in for the kill, a hand reaches out to offer salvation. That's gladly taken. So Storm saves this woman, and in this kind of dream hallucination sequence while she's unconscious, the ghost, kind of like the monstrous transformation of her mother's corpse, chases after her, and she's rescued by a female hand. And notice also that she's now in her X-Men costume as she's rescued there. That's a great page by John Bolton. Really inventive visual storytelling, fantastic. I'm sure Claremont was just delighted at how this collaboration with Bolton was going. And here we go, at which point Storm wakes up and she exclaims, "Mother, you saved me," but it's not her mother. And instead, it's this woman wearing strange costume. "Gently, lass," she says, "gently. You've been long abed, and this hasn't seemed the gentlest of sleeps. But you've naught to fear. You're among friends, quite safe." So Storm asks the sensible question, "Where am I?" And the woman says, "The world, but not, I'll hazard, your world, though they appear to have much in common." And then she introduces herself, "I am Marin." And that's so interesting. Storm's mother is Indare with that glottal stop. And this woman from another world, an alternative dimension, also has a name comparably composed, Marin with a glottal stop. I'm called Storm, but my name is Aurora. What does that name mean? Asks Marin. Beauty. And Marin replies, an apt choice in both counts. The healers despaired of your recovery rather, but I knew better. In your state I would not yield to the shadow, and from the moment I beheld you in the lake, I sensed in that way, and others, we were much alike. So Storm recognizes that this is the woman she saved. I still do not understand, says Storm. I dove into the lake on Earth, and Marin says, an eye into one here. There are places in the firmament where the dimensional walls between worlds grow thin, forming a sort of junction that allows people to pass through. This evidently was one such. So this is a fantasy story involving portals that allow transition from one world to the next. And it has me thinking of, if I was thinking of Flash Gordon earlier, now I'm thinking of C.S. Lewis and the Narnia Chronicles, where they also get similar portals, and journeys to strange lands with strange customs as well. And also a different running of time too. So Storm sees where she is. She's on this ship, and she says, Marin, your ship, it flies. Many things do on this world, says Marin. And then she cautions Aurora, stop, what are you doing? So Storm is able to fly, and Marin is delighted. Blessed Solar, what a wonder you are, child, like looking at myself reborn. So that's an interesting statement. And then there's this silver wolf fox. Hello, Wind Rider, he says, welcome to my realm, a talking animal. Do I affright thee, little one? He speaks with the dialect of a 16th or 17th century Shakespeare character. Is it so wondrous a feat, he asks. Truly, the marvel be that intelligence can manifest itself in so small a fleshly casement as thyself. And he also has one of those names with a glottal stop. I am Chijim, if that is how Claremont intends it to be pronounced. And thou hast my gratitude eternal for the rescue of my mistress, Marin. So Marin there says to Storm, a storm sits on Chijim's back. You've made a conquest, Aurora, and a rare, fine feat it is too. It's been an age since I've heard Chijim croon so. An age, my lady, he says, since I've had reason. You both do me more honour than I deserve, says Storm. That child be not possible, says Chijim. I am thine, Aurora, as I am Marin's forever, so a faithful servant. This is wild stuff coming out of an X-Men comic. Like, this has come entirely out of complete left field. And it's so interesting to think of Claremont putting this back into the middle of a 2-week period in Uncanny X-Men 116, that this untold tale, this untold fantasy adventure of Storm's took place. And the purpose of this in 1988 is to link into the appearance of Marin in Uncanny X-Men number 12, the 1988 annual, drawn by Arthur Adams and featuring an adventure of the X-Men in the Savage Land. So you'll also find a review of that annual in the back catalogue of the channel's content if you're interested in watching it after my review of this particular story. And this story is coming to an end quickly. Like, it is over after these 2 pages. It's 11 pages only, but there's so much potential here. So we get a what's it called, like a collage of events that occur in an unspecified period of time. Adventures of Storms. The days that follow are wild beyond Storm's most fantastic imaginings, for Marin is warlord of the skies, and Chijim seeks her foes with a ferocious tenacity that would shame the deadliest earthly predator. Storm does her best to help, scouting the enemy's positions, then using her winds to send their flyers crashing out of control or striking them down with lightning. So you can see that here. These are their flyers, and they're bat-like in construction, or they are bat-like creatures that are being ridden by their enemies. Like, this is amazing world building by Claremont for a few pages of an 11-page story. I've read that. Time and again, she proves herself as valiant as Marin's finest warriors. So here we are, warrior woman Storm, and this is the inspiration for the back cover, this little scene here. And afterwards, perhaps to atone for what was done in the heats of battle, she fights as hard for the lives of the wounded of both sides, saving who she can, comforting those beyond help. So that is Storm dealing with this tension in her principles, her duty as an X-Man and her commitment to the sacredness of life. And we see that getting balanced out here in the adventure she has in this other dimension with Marin. Later she stands by Marin's side as the warlord passes judgment on the few prisoners and notes that Marin deals far more mercifully with them than they would with her were their positions reversed. And later still, when duty's done, a celebration, the details of which Storm thankfully does not remember. So there's an implication there that Storm gets drunk or something equivalent to that. And that is interesting in terms of Uncanny X-Men 186, where Storm spends time with Forge in his Erie in Dallas, Texas. And it's supposed to be the first time that she drinks champagne, but it's implied it's maybe the first time she drinks alcohol. So a little bit of a perhaps contradiction there, or maybe I'm wrong, but about there being a contradiction. Maybe it's only champagne that she drinks for the first time in Forge's Erie. What's happening to me, she thinks subsequently, is it this world or something within myself? I'm nothing here like I am at home. There's a wildness that frightens me, and yet which will not be denied. So the two sides of Storm, and these are light motifs of Claremont's oeuvre on the X-Men, the 16 years on the X-Men, that every character, every X-Man has two sides to them, a light and a dark side, that are forever in tension. And the trick is to come to a satisfying balance between the two sides. And Storm seems to be getting there. I do not know what to do, she thinks to herself, but I find it so easy to talk to Marin. Perhaps she... And then she finds the apartment's empty. She's not here. And there's a statuette, and it's Marin, but when she was younger, and she's there with a female child. Her child, thinks Storm. And she looks surprised there as well. So well done by Bolton, the expression on her face. And Marin is out talking to Jean. Am I mad? She asks Old Soaring, Slyboots, Skyfox to want to keep her by me. Probably. I don't care. I'm being selfish, I know. She has her own life and dreams. But what of our dreams? In her, I see the past made whole. So this is a mother bereft of her child, and Storm is a child, like a young woman who, as a child, was bereft of her mother. She yearns as deeply as I. Oh, Chijin, we've both of us talked alone so long. Haven't we earned this little piece of happiness? And Storm says very clearly, I am not your child, Marin. So motherless Storm, not looking for a surrogate mother. No, not flesh of my flesh. The creature with that honor, goddess, rot me for bearing her, leads those pirates we fought. Offspring do not always follow the path parents set for them, but occasionally should Father Fortune smile, there comes along someone who's everything you wish for in a child, yours in spirit if not in blood. All I possess, Aurora, is yours for the asking. And Storm hugs her. I want to, Marin, with all my heart. And then she's crying there, you can see, but I cannot, my place is not here. You have responsibilities, obligations which bind you. So do I. And that's what Wolverine said about Storm earlier. So this is a nice end booking here. Let me go back to Wolverine's words. He said, to Kazar, she's an adult, ready and able to take responsibility for her actions. And so here she is doing it. She's not going to regress and stay with Marin because of her own lost mother from her childhood. If there's a way back home to my world and my friends, I must take it, says Storm. So easy, so tempting to lie, says Marin, but she's honourable, and say the way is closed. Chijim is bound for the junction. All you need do is dive through, and you will be back where you came from. This cameo crystal is bonded to me, she says. With it, you'll know if I'm well or ill, as I shall of you. And should you ever wish to return, it will lead you to the junction. Till then, a place will ever be set for you at my table and in my heart. Good fortune, daughter. And Storm says, having said on the other page, you're not my mother, farewell, mother. So this is a mother that she can accept. One who doesn't demand her to be a child locked by her side. And so they will meet again, and they do meet again in Uncanny X-Men Annual number 12, as I said. So do search for that in the back catalogue on the channel, and you'll get the continuation of this emotional relationship and bond between Marin and Storm. So very intriguing, isn't it? And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on the backup story Solace to Classic X-Men number 22. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.